War. War never changes. Though the methods of fighting war do. In Fallout 4, for example, there are frankly tons of ways to eradicate your opponents, from high-powered Gatling lasers to old-world swords to grenades of every shape and size to the tried-and-tested handgun. I will be using none of those. Recently, I discovered a channel called Synonymous on YouTube, and they deal in Fallout lore as well as the occasional challenge run. I do highly recommend you check them out if you're a fan of Fallout, as I am. I especially recommend watching their video on the Survivalist and their Can You Beat Lonesome Road with Only a Nailgun challenge run. These two are easily my favourites of their work, and there's so much more good stuff, so do check it out. I'll link to their channel as well as those two videos in the description below. As you've probably inferred, this video was indeed inspired by the challenge runs I saw on their channel. I thought doing a Fallout challenge run would be fun, and as I had just installed Fallout 4 for a quick play, I figured this was as good a time as any to challenge myself. Of all the weapons in the wasteland, I decided that a Switchblade would be my weapon of choice, so let's run down the rules of the challenge. I can only attack enemies using a Switchblade. Enemies and NPCs are allowed to kill one another though, and deaths that occur as part of the story are allowed. I cannot use companions to get kills, however for missions where one joins as an NPC and not as a companion, then they are allowed to kill. However, I am encouraged to do as much of the killing and damage as possible. I can install the Switchblade Serrated Blade mod, but I cannot swap the Switchblade for a legendary version should I encounter one. And the run will be over when I either complete the Nuclear Family or Nuclear Option quest. So the rules are established and now we can get on with it. However, I wish to disclose that this is my second time going at the run. I accidentally deleted the footage from my previous run and I didn't have an early enough save that I could go back from to recreate the journey, so I had to start afresh. However, at the end of this journey, I will tell you how that first run went. So, the rules are established, that information is disclosed, we can now start. Can I beat Fallout 4 using only a Switchblade? Let's find out. So we're going to start ourselves a new game, and I'm going to create my character. I'm going to be Nora this time. I'm usually Nora. I prefer to play as the lady when I get an opportunity to do so. Once you've created your character, you can go about your morning, drink some coffee, chat with the robot. It's a very dragged out section, I'm not gonna lie. Thankfully, after a short time, the Vault Tech representative shows up and we can set up our stats and choose a name. I decided we needed a name suitable for this run, so I went with Stabitha. I then set up my stats. I went mostly with agility and strength. They seem to be the best choices for a melee only run. Agility affects your speed and strength obviously affects your melee damage, and I was gonna need every edge I could get. I'm going to assume that you know enough about Fallout 4 to know the main plot points, so we are gonna skip this next big section that really is just a drag because it's essentially one playable cutscene. It's not really part of the challenge. We're going to jump ahead to when we first emerged from the cryopod within Vault 111. So I escaped my cryogenic pod and made my way through Vault 111. The first Switchblade that you can find in the game is just outside the vault, so I wouldn't be able to kill anything in the vault myself. I have to avoid the rad roaches at all costs. Luckily, I had a bit of a plan. The rad roaches cannot open the big heavy door, so all I have to do is get ahead of a group of them and slam the door in their face. Once I got to the Overseer's office, I looted it for stim packs and ammo. Obviously I wasn't going to need the ammo for any guns, but you can sell it for a nifty profit, and I was going to need all those caps I could get to buy as many stim packs as possible. With the Overseer's quarters effectively looted, I accessed the terminal to open a door to the secret tunnel and made my way through it. The tunnel was full of rad roaches, which I was almost able to sneak past until it stopped working. I would then have to begin a bit of a dance to get the rad roaches to stay on the right side of the door so I could shut the bloody thing.
Giant roaches? What the hell?
With that finally done, I could make my way to the Pip-Boy, which you need to access the vault door. Of course, I couldn't pick it up just yet. I'd have to go into stealth mode and wait for all the rad roaches to stop being hostile so I could pick it up, as you can't activate it whilst in combat. But once the rad roaches had finally chilled out, I put on the Pip-Boy that I found on a dead guy. I'm sure this is perfectly sanitary. I activated the vault door and made my way to the wasteland. Once I'd escaped the vault, I indulged my first instinct to loot the area for anything even remotely useful, and I also found myself a Switchblade which was stabbed into the top of a terminal. Thank God for that. I was worried I'd have to make it all the way to Concord before I found one of these things, at least initially. Now with my lovely Switchblade equipped, I could take on any challenge the Commonwealth wanted to throw at me. I returned to my lovely pre-war home to quickly pick up the Grognak the Barbarian magazine for the extra boost to critical melee damage, and the Your Special book that hides underneath the diaper changing table. It allows you to increase one of your stats by 1, so I put it on luck because luck helps you build your critical meter faster. I then decided to speak to Codsworth, although I can't really say why. It felt like a fairly pointless step, because those bloatflies that appear in the houses that I wanted to go and kill would have appeared regardless, so I feel like I just wasted the effort here. I think I just wanted the little bit of XP you get from asking him if he's okay. We then went and killed some bloatflies together. By that I mean I sprinted ahead of him so I could kill the bloatflies before he got a chance to do a single hit to them. I know he's not a companion at the moment, but I still wanted to do as best I could, you know? With the flies taken care of, I did a bit of looting around Sanctuary Hills before I pressed on, simply to try and get as much healing equipment as I could. There were a couple of 10mm pistols lying around, which can be good to scrap and sell. If you're wondering why I didn't take the one we find in Vault 111, it's because it auto-equips to you, and I really didn't want that to happen. On my way out of town, I encountered a rad roach that I could finally stab, and I saw a dead raider whose outfit I immediately looted because it's slightly better than the Vault suit when it comes to protecting against ballistic damage, which is mostly what you'll encounter early game. Of course, I greeted the dog because I feel really weird if I don't, but as soon as he became a companion, I dismissed him so that he wouldn't be tempted to kill anything on my behalf. At least after I went through the introduction a second time, because the game is buggy as hell and it forgot I was already doing the introduction, so I had to do the dialogue again. Before I pressed on further into the wasteland, I decided to set up my base of operations. I tend to use the Red Rocket truck stop because I find it the most convenient to use as a headquarters. After cooking up all the meat I'd been finding on those insects I'd been stomping, I made my way into the Commonwealth to continue the quest. I encountered some blood bugs feasting on a dead Brahmin, so quickly had to delete them. Wahahaha, I am the lord of stabbing things. I was then rudely accosted by some mole rats, which usually attack you if you hang around the Red Rocket too long, but as I didn't this time, I think they followed me. Making my way further into Concord, I decided on a plan of action. I wasn't going to talk to the Minutemen this time around because I only have so many hours to play this game and the Minutemen quests drag on and on and on and on. I'd make it to the fusion core, steal it, hijack the power armor off the roof, and just leave. Of course, I was nice enough to kill a bunch of raiders on the way because, well, you've got to do every little kindness you can in the wasteland. Whilst doing this, I managed to reach level 2, which was brilliant. The first rank of Big Leagues was the very first perk I chose for that 20% boost to melee damage, and if I keep building into this, I'll eventually be able to disarm enemies in melee combat, which is really bloody handy. With that done, I proceeded to kill the rest of the raiders outside the museum before heading inside. I did stop to loot the dead Minuteman to take his weapon and ammo, simply to sell them later. I also put on some of the raider armor I'd been finding. Inside the museum, I proceeded with my plan and looted the fusion core. Picking that lock got me enough XP to get me to level 3, so I chose my next perk. This time I chose the blacksmith perk, simply so I could upgrade my Switchblade. I then made my way to the roof, killing every raider I found on the way. There are quite a lot of raiders, so I did take some damage, but it was nothing a couple of stim packs couldn't cure. With these raiders dead, I made my way to the roof so I could loot the power armor. I wasn't going to use the power armor right away, I was mostly going to save it for difficult enemy encounters. Luckily, if you don't speak to the Minutemen inside, the second wave of raiders won't spawn, and neither will the Deathclaw, which is a massive relief, I've got to say. Taking on a Deathclaw with only a Switchblade and nearly broken power armor isn't exactly my idea of a good time. I would return later though, I made that pledge to myself that I'd return later to beat the shit out of the Deathclaw when I could. I fast travelled back to the Red Rocket truck stop and quickly ditched the armour. I did a bit of repairs to it, but I was mainly here to drop it off and upgrade my Switchblade to give it the Serrated Blade mod. With this mod installed, every time I attacked an enemy they'd start bleeding and losing health over time, and this effect even works on robots, so it's a really handy thing to do. I also renamed the Switchblade Bleedy because I wanted to. Once I was finished here, I decided to fast travel back to the entrance of Vault 111 because not too far from the entrance there's a cabin with a useful magazine inside and I wanted to get a hold of it before I proceeded. On my way to the aforementioned cabin, I encountered a group of raiders and decided that they really needed to meet Bleedy, so I began stabbing them. I did get my arm crippled by their guard dog, which was a little bit rude, but again, it's nothing a stim pack won't cure. At this point, I was also debating raising the game difficulty because the raiders had really not been that big a deal, but to be fair, the early game raiders are supposed to be easy enemies, so I thought I'd leave it for a while and see how I felt. The cabin itself is a short hike south from the Vault 111 entrance, and if you're wondering what's actually inside, there's a copy of the Wasteland Survival Guide, and this particular copy gives you a perk that blocks 5% of incoming melee damage. As I was going to be spending the majority of my playthrough so close to enemies that I could kiss them, I thought this was a useful perk to have. I also may or may not have thought that this issue gave you double the meat finds from enemies, and that's the real reason I came out of the way. I got the magazine issue wrong. That's not to say I wasn't going to seek this one out anyway, because again, it's a useful perk. I thought this issue lied in the wreck of the USS Riptide, which is in the Boston River. I got the issues confused, that's all. Not far from the cabin, I happened upon a den of Radstag and was able to kill one, which is kind of difficult in melee because they usually run away at the first sign of trouble. I then fast travelled back to the Red Rocket truck stop and spent some time rearranging my little home, because why not? I needed it to look nice even if I wasn't going to be building an epic settlement there like I usually do. With my rearrangements done, I headed back to Concord so I could proceed with the main quest, which translates to I teleported there and then immediately left town to head towards Boston. I stopped in at Trudy's diner on the way to quickly complete the Order Up quest for some extra XP. I did try to end things peacefully. I always try to end things peacefully, but half the time Trudy just won't fucking pay up and I have to kill Wolfgang. It's not that killing Wolfgang and his muscle Simone is particularly difficult, it's just if you do that, every time from that point on that you return to the diner to do any trading, Trudy will say this.
I can rest easy knowing that Wolfgang is rotten in hell. I can rest easy knowing that Wolfgang is rotten in hell. I can rest easy knowing that Wolfgang is rotten in hell. I can rest easy knowing that Wolfgang is rotten in hell.
I can rest easy knowing that Wolfgang is rotten in hell.
But as my charisma was not high enough, I ended up having to kill the good, honest drug peddlers. Completing the Order Up quest got me enough XP to get me to level 4, and after some meandering in the perk menu, I settled upon the first rank of Medic. I did some trading with Trudy, simply to get as many stim packs as I could, and I then made my way into Lexington. Of course, I was going to have to be careful in this particular town. See, there happens to be one raider here that's not only got himself a suit of power armor, but he's also carrying a Fat Man. If you somehow don't know, the Fat Man is a nuclear catapult, and you really don't want to be on the business end of that, so I was going to have to sneak through town and just avoid him at all costs, because he's very trigger happy with it. It doesn't matter how close you get to him, he will fire it. Whilst in town, I decided to loot the nearby bank for all the pre-war money I could carry, simply to trade it later for more caps. I made sure not to go inside the super duper mart, simply because later I could come back and re-loot all of the pre-war money because it will have respawned. It only seems to stop respawning if you go inside the supermarket, so I just avoided going in there. I made it through most of Lexington without getting into any trouble, though I did encounter some feral ghouls killing some raiders, and as I was out of the line of sight of that dude carrying the Fat Man, I figured I could get my dagger wet, if you know what I mean. Wink. It's not subtle. I'm stabbing them. As I exit Lexington, I pick up the Brotherhood of Steel distress call, and I'm given the quest Fire Support. I also came across some scavengers and some raiders having a bit of a shootout, and since the scavengers had a set of armour that I wanted to get my hands on, I decided I'd be a good Samaritan and murder everyone equally. That's not how that works. Honestly, I mainly wanted it because it was easier. See, the modular armour system in Fallout 4 is quite a good system, but it's also kind of a hassle to have to mess around with, and I really didn't want to get that invested in armour this time around. I was just going to find a singular set I could wear and be done with it. With the raiders and scavengers dead, I made my way towards Concord Square. I was going to stick to the outside to avoid the feral ghouls because I was going to be fighting enough of them when I did the Brotherhood quest, which I was going to do for the XP. Of course, I just wanted to avoid getting too irradiated before that point, because Fallout 4's radiation system is very annoying. While sneaking, I happened upon a particularly disciplined group of dogs, which amused me. Of course, all of their military training was no match for Bleedy. I then made my way to the Brotherhood, who were just about holding out against a horde of feral ghouls. I was going to have fun here because every time the ghouls attacked you they did radiation damage, and as I mentioned a minute ago, radiation system in Fallout 4 is a little bit shit. Still, I wanted to do the quest simply for the XP. It was going to be useful down the line even if I did have to deal with a bunch of rat-spitting zombies. With the ghouls dead, I spoke to Paladin Dance and accepted his quest, and I hit level 5. After some internal debating, I chose the first rank of sneak so that I could better sneak around enemies. I didn't need to explain what sneaking does. I wanted to invest in it early so that later I could get the ranks that let you basically ignore all the floor-based traps that can cause you massive problems. With that done, I headed inside the police station and told Dance I was ready for action. This isn't a particularly long or interesting quest, but I wanted to do it again for the XP, and also because a lot of the enemies you encounter drop some guns that are fairly valuable to sell. On our way to ArcJet Systems, we encounter a group of raiders. I did my best to make sure I killed as many of them as possible. We also encountered a couple of bloat flies, which really weren't that big a deal, and a group of dogs. However, before I entered ArcJet Systems itself, I headed back to Trudy's diner to do some trading.
I can rest easy knowing that Wolfgang is rotten in hell.
Once I had some more stim packs, I headed back to ArcJet Systems to continue the quest with Dance. You probably know how this bit goes by now. Once you open the door, you're attacked by a group of simps, and around here is when I died for the first time, because simps do quite a lot of damage to the player. The next time went a lot better. I think it's because I underestimated my opponent, since usually I'm here with several powerful rifles and grenades at this point. I'm also usually a lot higher level. See, I usually play Fallout 4 to build epic towns, and you need to be level 14 to get the best perks to effectively build your towns. Usually I also would have done the Minuteman quest in Concord to get the boost to XP, and I probably would have done the Quarry quest where you have to quickly fix the leaking pipes. I also would have got the XP from building the towns themselves, because even though you couldn't build the workbenches or any of the merchant stalls, you could still build the, basic bits like shacks and the tables and the turrets. I also would have had all the XP from the weapon mods I would have been doing. I usually like to attach heavy receivers to pistols and new barrels to the rifles, and I also would have made more grenades by this point. This whole area did make me think that I'm going to have a hell of a time with the rest of the game, as I wasn't going to be leveling up anywhere near as frequently as I usually do. Still though, it wasn't too hard to take on the rest of the simps now that I knew what I was in for, and soon enough we were finding the bit that Dance brought us here for, and we could make our way out. Dance, clearly impressed by my proficiency with a Switchblade, tries to confess his love for me with a rifle, but I must reject him and move on into the wasteland. I'd already decided that my relationship with the Brotherhood was going to be more of a one-night stand rather than a long-term affair, simply because they're a bunch of fucking nutters.
I can rest easy knowing that Wolfgang is rotten in
I quickly head back to Trudy's to sell off Righteous Authority and all the other bits I'd been finding before I continue on my way. I then quickly travel back to Red Rocket to do some cooking and decorating before making my way further into Boston. Heading deeper into the city, we encounter the wreck of the USS Riptide, and I feel like stabbing some raiders, so that's exactly what I do. I still suck at sneaking, so I couldn't exactly get the drop on them, but apparently I didn't need to, because I'm the God Queen of Death. I also learned that melee attacks to the torso with power-armored enemies can cause their core to overload and explode. I pick up the Wasteland Survival Guide here. It's also the wrong one. The one I'm actually looking for is the one that gives you double meat drop from animals, and I cannot remember where I pick it up from. I keep forgetting. It's bloody irritating. After some more wandering, I come across the Diamond City security guards having a shootout with the super mutants, so I decide to see how hard a super mutant is to kill with a Switchblade. My first scuffle with the mutant hounds didn't go anywhere near as badly as I thought it would, although they can take quite a lot of damage, so it's going to be more a battle of attrition than anything else. However, after killing the first one, I managed to hit level 7. Before I chose my perk though, I decided to finish off the other one. Luckily, the Switchblade can do quite a lot of attacks using VATS, however sometimes VATS wants to screw you and just stops letting you attack for no defined reason. I'm not sure why it does this, but it did us a bunch more throughout the game. With the dogs dead, I took the second rank of Big Leagues and proceeded to try and kill the rest of the super mutants. I get the sense that this one just really wanted to die. I'll be honest with you, these super mutants were nowhere near as hard to kill as I thought they would be. They didn't even do that much damage to me. However, this is the very first time you encounter them, and I'm a low level, so maybe it is just that. Anyway, with the mutants dead, I feel like I should let you in on my plan now. I'm only by Diamond City to discover the Fen Street sewer to use as a fast travel point for later. I'm actually going to proceed straight to the vault where Nick Valentine is being held captive and free him before going to the city, simply to avoid the conversation with Piper outside because I find it annoying. He'll be in the vault as a prisoner whether or not you speak to his secretary Ellie, so you might as well just skip this step. That's what I thought to myself, and so I did that. On my way, I encountered another group of ferals outside the Boston Library, got the jump on a pair of the least perceptive raiders ever to run the Commonwealth, then made it to Park Street Station. I then decided to head a little bit further into the city to discover Good Neighbor for later, encountering yet another group of feral ghouls because these things are bloody everywhere. I also encountered another group of super mutants, though I only had to kill one before I was able to successfully sneak away. I got a sneak attack on him though, so yay me. I made it to Good Neighbor and let the little cutscene play out where the dude threatens you and then he gets killed by the mayor, spoiler alert. I stuck around to sell off some of the crap I found to Daisy, the local merchant, then headed back to the Red Rocket truck stop to cook up all the meat I'd been finding. And I think here we're going to stop for now because this video is long enough as it is and we've still got so much ground to cover. But I hope you've enjoyed this first part of what's apparently a series. I'd hope to do a singular video, but I've got quite a lot of footage to get through, so it's going to be a little series, I'm afraid. But well done on you if you made it this far. In fact, if you made it this far, let me know in the comments. I want you to write something silly in the comments. Anything ridiculous and silly, just whatever comes to mind, just write it in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out that other channel I mentioned in the intro. Again, those video links will be in the description. And we'll see you next time, my lovelies. I hope you all have a wonderful new year, because obviously it's still 2022 at the time of making this and posting this. So yeah, look, I got another video out before the end of the year. Aren't you lucky? So, have a wonderful new year. I love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.